Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question this morning is to the Minister of Finance. Good morning, Minister. Ontario families are anxious about other contracts that the Premier has pledged to rip up. We now know Ontario is paying clean energy providers $231 million not to build green power. The government's political interventions with Hydro One have already led to a cancelled contract and a $103 million penalty. And the government has lost court battle after court battle, probably more to come. Earlier this year, the Premier passed legislation to tear up the province's 10-year contracts with the beer store. Industry sources estimate that this reckless move could cost Ontarians up to $1 billion. Can the minister please give us an update on the plan to rip up the contract with the beer store, and how much will that cost taxpayers?
Questions to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you. I thank the member for her interest in her question. Mr. Speaker, we are modernizing alcohol and the legislation around alcohol. As the member will know, in the Fez bill, there are several very progressive amendments contained, amendments that all stakeholders, whether it's the wine industry or the cider industry or members of the beer industry, have indicated they support the idea of decoupling the issues of the regulator versus the LCBO. So there is a great deal of progress in that regard. We've also made it clear that we want to increase convenience for Ontarians, and we are in discussions with all stakeholders, including the brewers in that regard. And Mr. Speaker, when we have news to report on those discussions, I'll be happy to bring them to this legislature.
Supplementary question.
Well, thank you for that answer, Minister, but I would say that the people of Ontario are more interested in what this is going to cost them, not how often they can get a buck of beer in Ontario. So this government is now notorious for ripping up contracts without consideration for the cost. So to quote one observer, governments can also make boneheaded, ideological decisions that close businesses, kill jobs, and drive away investment, which is exactly what the Ford government is doing. It's been months since the government passed legislation giving themselves the power to rip up the beer store contract, cancellation that we know could cost millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for taxpayers. Will the minister please tell families how much public money will be spent on ripping up these contracts, and why is this money being diverted from our schools and underfunded hospitals?